Hello, 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 everybody. Maris Rey, Water Dragon Extraordinaire, back at you again with another Genshin Impact livestream. I got new mail. Simple stuff. Okay, so welcome back to the Genshin Impact streams. My daily Genshin Impact streams, I'll remind you. I do stream Genshin Impact every single day without fail. I try my best to never miss a day. Of course, even I'm not perfect, even though I am fantastic, amazing, and ultimately I'm pretty decent dragon, but you know, what could you compare it to, right? How many dragons do you realistically know? In any case, today we're going to farm mostly EXP books. We are almost at the amount of books needed to get Kazuha up to 90. According to this, let me go ahead and show you. Okay, so according to this, as you can see, I should only need 419-ish books with around 7.2 million mora to be able to get Kazuha all the way up to 90 from level 1, the very second that we get him, and ascend his talents all the way to 10. Now, I know that ascending his talents, I know before anybody says anything that ascending Kazuha's talents doesn't really do anything for his damage, since I'm going to be building him as an EM support. I don't care. I really love Kazuha, his character, his story, his kit, his gameplay, his usefulness, his utility, his overworld status, his overworld passive. I love literally everything about Kazuha, so because of that, I'm going to triple crown him, and you cannot convince me otherwise. I am open to convincing in various types of ways, but not to that. Oh, excuse me, I drank a bit too much water right now, I think. Went down the wrong tube. Okay, so we're purely doing revelations today. Ideally, it is a shame that it's whatever. Okay, so we're purely doing revelations. We're getting EXP books. We're not going to do a single Mora dungeon today because, luckily, based off of all the stuff that we did do, we were able to accrue kind of a lot of Mora. So even though we don't have enough Mora to fully level up like my Kazuha and Fischl and Stringless, even though I'm not yet capable of doing all those things, I'm still fine. I'm still held in a good position. Right now, my main priority... Actually, let me double check how much more do I need in total. In total, I need about 10 million more. So I only need about 1.5 more million more, which I can get over a few days. The problem is I am still going to need a lot of EXP books as well. Overall, I need a lot of both, so there's no point in arguing one or the other. Inazuma shines eternal. Okay, so I don't know how much we'll get today, but I suspect at the very least we'll have enough to get Kazuha up to 90. And then it's just a matter of ensuring that I get enough to level up Fischl as well. Eventually. I can't believe... Alright, let me double... You gotta double look-see. I can't believe to go from 80 to 90 is 172 of those books. That's insane. So, like, the majority of the EXP threshold is actually just from those initial levels. Or from those late... Like, 70 to 90 probably uses the majority of the EXP books. That's insane to me. I mean, like, almost kind of obviously, they're not going to be held at the front of the initial cost of leveling. But still, it's kind of a lot of books, is it not? I know it's the cost that I was eventually going to have to pay, considering I'm trying to take all these characters to 90. And I'm raising certain characters' usefulness and their relevance and all this stuff. Well, I understand the initial concern. Sure, I didn't need to use shout. Oh, that's fine. Okay. It's another free one. That's 9 more books. So we're already drawing pretty close to being done with the amount of total books needed for Kazuha. Because again, we only need about 419 books, approximately. But we are going to take this entire day to farm just a regular amount of books. Indiscriminately. We're going to do all 160 of my resin as such. I know it goes against my previous ideology of trying to utilize the Leyline event by going 2-1 from Mora to EXP. But what does it really matter at the end of the day? Truth be told, I should have more or less enough books. Obviously, I have enough material now to level up Fischl, at least. I'm eating. I'm sorry. I'm not supposed to be eating them. I forgot I poured myself these veggie straws as a snack. Try not to eat them unless I mute myself.
Time for takeoff.
They're a bit crunchy, you know? Okay, beautiful. Continue to spend the resin accordingly. We do not get a ton of EXP books from this, unfortunately, but that's just the way it is. It honestly feels like you get way more Mora for 20 resin than you get EXP books for 20 resin. Which is an interesting phenomenon, not one I would have expected. Nice. Books. It might be faster to teleport there. Yeah, so we're fully ready for Kazuha now. Now all we purely need is to actually pull them. Now, mind you, I do have enough pulls to guarantee a copy of Kazuha at C0, assuming that I go to 90 on both pities, or I go to 90 every pity, and I miss every 50-50. Even if I do all things possible, I've still guaranteed at least to get Kazuha. However, with a little bit of luck, we can get him to C2. That's my ultimate goal. That's where I want him, is C2.
Here we go.
Jeez. Yeah, I'm... Fingers crossed, please. I require all of your guys' energy. We need to get Kazuha to C2. The quicker that I'll be able to do it, obviously, the better. I would like to not spend so much money if possible. But I'm getting him to C2. Like, it's just... That's just happening.
Think you can
not up for debate.
Yahoo! Here we go.
Boy. My throat's a little groggy for some reason. Don't know why these things are taking so long to die. Okay, perfect. And then we'll see ultimately how many books we end up with once we're completely spent on resin, which is coming up. This is the last one that we'll be able to afford to do, unless we throw in this transient resin. Oh no, this fragile resin. Whatever. I don't know if we should save the fragile resin, and if we should save it, I don't know for what. I can't imagine having too big of a need to save it, but I mean, maybe the need for it. But that might just be my hoarder mentality.
Time for takeoff. Brace yourself.
Boring. Honestly, having Xiao at C1 was a pretty fortunate thing. I've gotten a lot of use out of Xiao for a long time simply because of him being C1. Okay, let's look at our total number of books. After 160 resin, even though it was 160 resin, it was closer to being like 220 resin in total, if you calculate it out to doubles. So I think we were, what were we at? Like 180 books? 130, 170, 180? I mean, 470 for, I'm sorry, 370 or 380 or something like that. So I think we got about like 50 books almost, which is not terribly bad. And of course we are picking up some of these, which are not particularly good, but they'll account for something. Well, do the commissions. Don't forget, nowadays as well, for the expeditions, we are starting to finally aim for the Mora expeditions instead of the vegetables and meat, like I have been since the inception of my account.
There is no escape. Hold the line. Think you can get away? Here we go. Brace yourself. Illusion shattered.
Illusion shattered. You gotta love Xiao. I mean, I guess you don't have to do anything, but I love Xiao. I love him. He's such a big animal damage carry. I know people might have like mixed feelings about him. Even myself. There are sometimes I question like how I'm supposed to enjoy playing his playstyle when he hurts himself. And he so easily gets knocked out of his I guess his stance while he's jumping. Oh, Sealy. Guess we'll run this Sealy real quick. So, to use Xiao and use him well, it feels like you basically have to use Zhongli.
Yahoo!
Oh my goodness.
Torn to oblivion. Take them.
Stupid Whopper
I
Fly.
have no need.
Was just dodging all my shit.
Illusion shattered. Hold the line. Foreign.
Okay. Let's do the commissions. We'll do our typical overworld farming. We'll do generic like theory crafting like normal. That's always fun. I enjoy theory crafting a lot. This was a fight I think I would have liked to have my rated Shogun ult. I don't because that goddamn Whopper Flower needed to dodge all my abilities.
There is no escape. Allow me. Billowing
Honestly, it's not too much damage, but it's not bad. And remember, I could actually make my Kokomi do so much more damage by giving her
The rain stopped. I don't concern myself with the weather.
my Skyward Atlas, and of course getting it up to 90. And then getting her talents up to level 9 or 8 at least. 7 if anything. Because Kokomi's talents as of right now are like 2, 3. So realistically, I could make her quite strong. She has a lot to actually gain still. So instead of those hits doing like 3k, I could probably get those hits to like anywhere from 5 to 7k, which actually could be pretty good. One of the problems with me switching Kokomi's build to something DPS oriented though is I think I'm actually quite content with her being mostly a healer. But you know, the option, it's all about the options, right? It's the fact that I could run her as a DPS that, in my opinion, it's why Genshin Impact is such a good game. Hey, Charles. Drinking for hours.
Foreign. Useless.
Ah, perfect. We're all done with the commissions. We've already spent all of our resin.
Thank you for
So, in general, like, this is where most people stop playing Genshin Impact because, you know, obviously, you've done the main stuff. What more is there to do, right? And in general, I would probably be inclined to agree, but... We evidently need all the more we could get, so... Even if it's not much, over a certain period of time, it could add up. Like, look at that. I'm almost at 9 million Mora, and I really haven't done anything. Yep. Okay, let's continue. We're gonna do the overworld farming now, of course. We do this every single day. For one, it's not really the worst thing to do anyways, even though I don't really... Probably at this point, I could say I probably don't need Ruin Guard stuff anymore. And maybe even Abyss Mage I could probably go without pretty soon. But it's still fun to fight the overworld mobs, I guess. You could say. It's fun to fight them. And defeating each one of them gives me 200 Mora, which is not really a whole lot of Mora, but even that's kind of fine. And they have the chance to drop an artifact, which I could sell for more. Okay, wow, look at all that damage, baby! Woo! Look at that damage. And so that damage can exist because Venti's swirling right in Shogun's Pyros. However, Kazuha will be able to do even more than that because Kazuha will provide like a 36% electro damage bonus to Raiden Shogun.
There is no escape. Brace yourself. Torn to oblivion.
Okay. Good god. It's because of the Viridescent Veneer. That's why that damage looks so absolutely magnificent. It's all the Viridescent Veneer. It's all of it. That's all the extra damage. Normally Raiden Shogun might hit like a smooth 40k there. But nope. She out here hitting 60k, almost 70. All because of the Viridescent Veneer.
Think you can get away?
Watch.
Let's play. A freshman. Now you shall.
And now 70k. Did you see that 70k swing? Did you see it? Oh my. Oh, Neptune. And Kazuha's gonna make that damage even higher. Honestly, she'll probably hit closer to 80k once I get Kazuha into the mix.
Wouldn't gliding be faster? Illusion shattered. Time for takeoff. Hold the line.
Hold the line. They just fall over. Too goddamn strong. Honestly, I could almost enjoy a stronger world level for some of the older content. Because, bro, I'm too strong. So imagine this. I'm not exactly free to play, but I'm also far from a whale. Like I've demonstrated to you guys before, I only have 2 5-star weapons after 2 years of playing. And the only reason I have these is because I randomly obtained them from the standard banner. So however, even with only having those 2 weapons, I can still do these insane amounts of damage. I can still 36-star the Spiral Abyss. So if you think you need all this stuff to be strong against an impact, you really don't. You just need some units that have at least some synergy. You do need some synergy on your team. You can't get by without synergy. But that's up to you to figure out. You could always look up like Kaching main guides on how to play your character, like in terms of like what synergizes with a unit and what doesn't.
There is no escape. Think you can get away?
There's a lot of resources available ultimately.
Yahoo! Allow me. Now
Okay, let's watch this damage. I don't think she crit. The damage is still high. Oh yeah. Damage is still plenty high. But so you get what I'm saying? There's still ways, like even if you didn't want to figure out how to play, like let's say you really liked Xiao, right? You wouldn't know. Maybe you would know or wouldn't know what units synergize really well with him, so you wouldn't really know what to do after that. All you know is you want to run him. But nowadays you could usually figure these things out. So like Xiao has really high base attack, so getting more attack with things like double pyro resonance is probably not as worth it compared to getting other sources of bonuses from like resistant shred from like double geo or something like that. Of course, you're already planning to run a geo character, because if you are you probably should be planning to run a geo character, because like I mentioned, one of Xiao's biggest weaknesses, as an example, this is just an example when thinking about comp synergy, is that he typically needs some type of a shield that grants knockback resistance, I guess you could call it. Or resistance to interruptions, at the very least. Yeah, that's the official terminology, I think. That way, your Xiao doesn't get messed out of his combo.
time for takeoff.
Obviously, that's a big deal.
Now you shall perish.
Oh, he almost got one shot. Choo-wee.
Illusion shattered.
Eagle conquering. There. I only ever come to fight the Abyss Mage here because I distinctly remember it's right there and not out of the... It's like not too far out of the way. Let's move on here. But so you would run like Xiao and like Zhongli as an example, and then maybe you consider going double Geo to get extra resistance shred for Xiao, in which case you could go for like, I don't know, you could probably throw in like Albedo and another Animo character, or you could throw in like Albedo and any of the swirlable elements, because Albedo would increase the elemental mastery at the very least of Xiao and the additional character. That way you can... It's not much, but it'll increase Xiao's swirls on whatever element that you end up adding. Like if, let's say you add, I don't know, like the Raiden Shogun to get their ults up. Or what if you add like Yelan or something like that? You get what I'm saying? It just adds another source of damage, because in Genshin Impact you don't want to stack too much of one thing,
Think you can get away?
because there's various multipliers at work. So a fine example to that is, you know, in general when you're building a character as like a DPS, you would typically build them, let's see, show us an example. You would typically build attack, elemental damage, crit, right? Which is true for a lot of characters' cases. Most characters' cases. However, one such character that disproves this theory, at least to an extent, is Raiden Shogun. Because she has a natural passive, I don't know which one it is, oh, it doesn't. It says, each 1% above 100% energy recharge that she possesses grants me this much extra energy restoration from using my ultimate, but most importantly, it also gives me 0.4% electro damage bonus. So remember, my goblet is an attack. My goblet's an attack goblet because look at how much electro damage I already have. If I was to run an electro damage bonus on top of this, it would, I think, not scale quite as well. Because let me see. It's not really changeable for me right now, but let me just compare it to another one. So it would get 46% more elemental damage instead of attack, which it's not so much that there's. I think at some point it would start reaching a bit of diminishing returns there, which, you know, it's kind of bad. Instead, I have all these other like variables stacking on my Raiden Shogun. So one, she's got a pretty high attack, which is a good like base level stat to be stacking for an offensive character. She has a lot of electro damage from her passive. She's stacking crit, so that's another multiplier. And although her crit rate's not great, don't forget she has an additional like 14% or so from the catch during her ultimate. So this is really like 56%. And again, I do have grounds to improve this even further as well. And then topple that off with the fact that she also is scaling with the burst damage bonus of Emblem of Severed Fate, which is giving her an additional elemental bonus by 25% of her energy recharge, with the maximum of 75%. So she has 265% total energy recharge, which means that's, let me see, 25% of that is, let's just run the calculator to be totally sure. How much did I have? 265. 25. That's 66% burst damage bonus as well. So all of these things are leading to this like insane multipliers on her. You see what I'm saying? 2200 attack, 66% electro damage bonus, with 156 crit damage, with about 60% burst damage as well from the Emblem of Severed Fate. All of these multipliers are working together, where I think that that's super beneficial to an extent, of course. There's a lot to min-maxing, but it's also not as complicated as people tend to make it out to be. I think.
How rude. Hold the line. Now you shall perish.
I'll explain what I mean by that in a second as well. Okay, let me just collect this guy's loot. I want to throw another Kokomi real quick to heal Venti. Just let that splash on him one time for the one time. Okay, so I want to quickly demonstrate what I mean. And so to do this, I am once again going to call upon this theoretical build optimizer. And again, I call it that because that's what it is. It's purely theoretical. We're using imaginary artifacts for an imaginary circumstance. That way we can compare what's on average going to be the most beneficial of these imaginary circumstances. So let me pop this over. Okay, so once again, we're back on this calculator. Big shout out to whoever made this. I don't actually know them personally or anything like that. But so let's use a fine example. We'll use Fischl, okay? And this is what I want to show you. I want to compare Frey Krugel, because that's where everybody uses Fischl for, right? So let's assume we have max talents in all regards. Level 90 weapon against a level 90 opponent. That way there is no damage penalty or bonus. So this was purely their raw damage. So in general, you're expected to use like Gladiator with Thundering Fury unofficial, because of course this does give her some electro damage outright. Right? Yeah, it gives her the 15% from the 2-set Thundering Fury, so it's at least a start. And then you probably run her with some type of crit rate, some type of electro damage, and some type of attack. This throws her electro damage all the way up to 61%. Don't forget, Raiden Shogun, my Raiden Shogun at least, already has that natural just from her talent, but never mind that. So we're looking at Frey Krugel here, right? So let's assume, of course, again, these are things that I want to compare to you as options for free-to-play players, okay? Or at least low dollar spenders, to show you realistically how actually easy it is to build a character. Because a lot of your stats and total damage comes from talents and levels. And at least having proper main stats. I'm of the belief that you don't particularly need super high or super like min-maxing on a full set on certain characters. Some characters utilize full sets better, and some sets are just better as full sets, like Emblem of Severed Fate, of course. So you would rarely run that as 2-piece, I think, but it is possible still. So let's say you wanted to build official, right? So let's start with some of the 3-star options. So some of the 3-star options, maybe this messenger is just fine. It offers crit damage, which, you know, that in itself is not particularly great. But now you start optimizing these substats a little bit, which is not difficult to do, like in a real game scenario. All that this does is help assume that you at least have crit and crit damage on all your artifacts, even if they're not particularly high. Like, I'm not suggesting that any damage is actually rolled into any of these. This is just base level. So as you can see, as of this point in time, Frey Krugel's hitting 4,300. So you saw, just by adding proper substats, my damage went up from, I think it was close to like 3,900. So it gains a whole additional 400 DPS on Frey Krugel, which is fairly good if you were to ask me. And then let's go ahead and continue to compare. So what if we didn't use a messenger and we use slingshot? So this gives more crit rate. Frey Krugel takes a small damage hit, but that's because we need to adjust this main stat to crit damage. All of a sudden the stats are looking even better, but it looks like Frey Krugel's total damage is still a little bit lesser than messenger. And now finally, so those are your 3-star options. You see how much damage your 3-star options are still able to give you? So assuming messenger is probably your best bet for a 3-star, it comes out to doing about 4,300 damage with your Frey Krugel. Now, another thing I'd like to demonstrate is the damage hit you'll take from not even using Thundering Fury. So what if you used 2-piece Shimenawa? So instead of running that extra 15% electro damage, you're just running 2 18% sets. As you can see, my damage is still above 4k. I lost probably about 150 total damage on Frey Krugel, which realistically it wasn't that much damage, like for the ease of collecting the other artifacts. Like, let's say in my particular situation, I farm Emblem of Severed Fate a lot. Because of this, I have a lot of excess Shimenawa sets that are just pretty good, standardly strong pieces. Same thing with Gladiator. Of course, Gladiator, you just get a bunch as you farm bosses over time. And you would, periodically get them from like Spiral Abyss and all this and that. Because of that, you should have plenty of like either of these sets just kind of lying around, in which case this is like super easy on a base level to obtain for your average player. And so again, this keeps me... And so these are your 3-star options. So let's assume and move on to still a pretty free-to-play accessible bow in the string list. I won't say that everybody has a string list by now, but most people, if you're like leveling units to get standard rolls and all this and that, chances are you probably at least have one string list by now. So now let's it looks like these stats are more or less still the same. So that level 1 string list, I'm sorry, not level 1 string list, that refinement 1 string list is already improving our damage by 500 over the 3-star options. So instead of 4100, Freykugel's doing 4600, which is a pretty big damage spike just from using string lists over whatever the case. And this is still realistically very solid damage for the fact that we're running Shimenawa Glad instead of like Glad with Thundering Fury. This is okay. One of the reasons this is okay is, for one, Freykugel does like, one thing to remember is Freykugel attacks for a significant amount of time. So let's continue to look upon this even further. Okay, so let's see. So let's assume that you wanted to spend a little bit. Actually, before we get into spending, let's show you the difference between using Blackcliff Warbow with no stacks. Chances are, whenever I use a weapon, I like to identify it as if it was a no stacks. That way, you could just pull out this unit against like a brand new boss or whatever. So looking at Freykugel, the damage realistically so far is not that different from the string list, so 48-26. If anything, Blackcliff Warbow is coming out just slightly ahead. Just optimize this to make sure that's still the case, and of course it is. So in terms of Blackcliff Warbow, we're actually starting to get a little bit of a winner here. And then you could compare it even further. What if I bought the Viridescent Hunt? So don't forget, 48-26, okay? So the Viridescent Hunt with a more appropriate stat optimization. Okay, so it looks like the Battle Pass Viridescent Hunt actually gives slightly less damage than Blackcliff Warbow. A bit surprising if you were to ask my honest opinion. Theoretically, a bit surprising. But as a show, if you have like the $10 to spend to buy the Battle Pass, which I know I'm not encouraging anybody to do it or suggesting that you should, I'm just alerting you to the possibilities and the fact that it is an option. That comparatively to like a 5-star bow, so like let's go into that. So let me show you the difference between what's a good 5-star bow for this, like Skyward Harp, I would think. Okay, so in fairness, in retrospect, Skyward bow's a little overpowered, so chances are, like, of course this damage is going to be pretty significantly higher. 48, that's almost a 1000 DPS increase. But realistically, and I think this was about 1300 or so, so it's about a 300 DPS increase on the Oz Summon DPS. I mean, not to say that it isn't insane. This is absolutely insane. I got a text message. It's just it was a text message from my gym. In any case, continuing on with the previous discussion, obviously a 5-star weapon is going to be stronger than a 4, and a 4 is stronger than a 5. But let's not forget where we started here, okay? The 3-star options were still able to be in the 4k free Krugel damage range, right? Again, let us compare. I can copy this here to demonstrate a little more clearly. As long as I adjust this to free Krugel. With Messenger, with the appropriate subsets, this is still almost 4200 DPS. Obviously, the alternative is significantly more damage. But this is a 3-star bow that's totally free to obtain at any point in time. Right? Yes. That's the big difference. They're cheaper to upgrade. Sure, it has a significantly less amount of weapon attack, and that's actually where I think at least a decent bulk of the damage difference comes from, is the fact that it's such a big discrepancy in the base attack. Especially because I'm running 2 18% artifact sets here. So, just for continuity, I will once again duplicate this and show you stringless, because this is the build that I plan to be. The stringless with these substats. So my fish will be hitting for 4600 on free Krugel, which obviously that's a 1200 DPS decrease from like the Skyward. No, what is this bow called? Oh yeah, Skyward Heart. As it should be. But I hope this opens your eyes to the potentials of how cheap it actually is to get a proper weapon build going. To actually, like, obviously you won't be maximizing your character's potential damages, but it still won't be that bad. And even still, this is not my highest damage. According to the calculator, the Black Cliff Warbow was actually higher damage overall for my 4-star options. Of the 4-star options, this is probably one of my better options. Now, what if I used another build like the Hamayumi? I mean, I don't think there's any reason to use Hamayumi, but you see it's still 4500 though, which is still better than the 3-star weapons, but worse than some of the 4-star options. Elegy for the end, perhaps? Nah. I don't think Elegy for the end is going to be the piece on this person. Ooh, definitely not Windbloom. This Windbloom is actually losing out to some extent to the Messenger. No, not comfortable. So even Prototype Crescent, not assuming that we're using its ability. Prototype Crescent is a weapon you can go and craft so long as you have the crafting material from the bosses. As you can see, it still does at least semi-reliable damage. Right? 4600 total DPS. Compared to the 3-star, which gives me almost 4200 DPS, and the 5-star, which gives almost 5900 DPS. So yes, there is a significant DPS discrepancy between 4-star and 5-star. But again, I do believe that that's fair, fine. Because I think you can actually be sated and totally satisfied with the amount of damage you can expect to have with 4-star weapons. And 3-star weapons even, to some extent. Now, just to show you that this isn't strictly official case, let's do this with another character. Like, let's say I wanted to work on my Xingqiu, right? Same thing. I know in general there's like a certain amount of ER you would want for him, but I'm just trying to prove damage scenarios to you here. So let's use... No, I suppose he's not a fine option because he's not like main DPS material. But let's say we were gonna main DPS with... Some of the characters are a bit weird. Let's say we're gonna main DPS with Ito. Okay, Ito's a fine one to test out. We do have to bump these down to 10 as well, though. So, unfortunately, these classes or Claymore users do not have a 3-star crit weapon. It's just a bit sad. You see, no 3-star crit weapon. Whatever, it happens. However, even some of these are totally fine to use. I'll prove it to you here once I've gotten this up a bit. I know that the set I'm about to throw down is not his best set, but we're just gonna have to deal with it. Or you know what, I'll even just throw in Husk. Husk, because I didn't feel like typing them all in, but that's fine. And we'll say it's at 2 stacks. And we're only looking at his burst DPS. Okay. So, with this in mind, let's look at his total. I suppose his total damage with... Oh, you know what? Let me start this off with one of these. So, geo damage to be expected. Attack is a bit odd. You wouldn't have expected attack, I think. So, under these circumstances, with the debate club, the freaking debate club, he's able to have a DPS of about 7,800, which is not unrealistic to expect for him in his ultimate. Okay, but obviously we could get this higher. What if I think debate club is probably the only realistically okay 3-star option for Claymore users. But let's say we move this around a bit and went for this White Iron Greatsword. His damage lowers, but it's honestly still pretty okay. Blackcliff, perhaps? Now Blackcliff raises the damage by a significant amount. So we adjust this, and no, it's still 9,600 DPS, fairly high. Okay, now we continue to change the weapon around. What if we did Serpent Spine and adjusted this a bit? The damage is still looking pretty good. So this is proving, at least a little bit to an extent, that Serpent Spine and Blackcliff weapons are usually interchangeable. Either of them are okay. By Serpent Spine, I mean Battle Pass weapons in actuality. Either of them are actually totally fine. You can get Blackcliff, or you can get whatever. Assuming you have to Star Glitters to spend on Blackcliff, of course. Now continuing on, what if I just got like this stupid Sea Lord one? My damage drops a little bit. Which is to be expected because he doesn't utilize attack percent that well. Now this could be potentially altered as well by... Strangely enough, this thing is not suggesting to offer him a whole bunch of defense, like I was really anticipating that it might. Though I suppose that it's not because of the Husk buff. But in any case, we'll continue on. Let's suggest that it uses a 5-star weapon now. So I know Arataki Ito does pretty okay with Skyward Pride because the energy recharge does not get wasted on him. As you can see, his DPS is not that much higher than his 4-star options, but at the benefit of him having extra energy recharge now. And that energy recharge is actually pretty valuable to Arataki Ito, because he basically needs to be in his ult. His uptime on his burst needs to be as close to 100% as possible to really maximize his benefits. Of course, with this weapon, things might change a bit. So we altered these to see what may or may not have changed. Strangely enough, I think crit damage is actually worth more than crit rate here. I think I partially disagree. Unless you get decent crit rate rolls, then that could almost be believable. For now, I think this is actually fine. What does it change? Why did I thought my total DPS was a little bit higher, but in any case, again, I'm just showing you the damage discrepancies between using 3-star, 4-star, 5-star weapons. Obviously, the 3-star options for Claymore users are not that great, but we users are a little blessed. And sword users, I think, are also a little blessed. Claymores, not so much. But as you can see, Skyward Pride, great sword. Now this optimizer, unfortunately, has the Redhorn Thrasher broken and doesn't have a crit damage listed for it. So I can't show you what his best in slot would look like. Well, we could even mess around with like Wolf's Gravestone. As you can see, this applies a big DPS increase to him. Quite heavily. 10.2 average DPS is insane, if you were to ask me. And again, you just roll semi-decent crit rolls, and this, like, he's going to be hitting real hard. Okay, I think we've had enough playing around with these theoretical numbers, though. Let's continue actually playing the game. That's something I'm very passionate about. I think people get too caught up in thinking they have to have this character's absolute best weapon. They need to have this character's best this and best that. It needs to have their best artifact set with their best weapon so that I can maximize them all the way to their absolute peak. And that's totally fine. However, do you realistically need to do all that?
Here we go. Allow a fresh maneuver. Inazuma shines eternal.
I think I ran out of the Viridescent Veneer at that point.
Shine absurd.
Yep. If you want to be maximizing characters, power to you. I will not hold you back. My ideas will totally align with yours. You're free to do whatever you want. However, I know that there's plenty of players that are not caught up in that notion and instead incorrectly believe that because they can't reach without spending, of course, like almost... what's the right term to say here? Without spending almost a ludicrous amount of money, that because they'll never be able to reach those heights, that they feel it's not worth playing. I disagree. You're still gonna be... I'm still proving to you here that you're gonna be very capable of achieving great things in Genshin Impact with minimal pay. Even as free-to-play if you wanted it to be. So I'm mostly telling you, don't get caught up. If you want to min-max your main DPSs, go for it. If you just want to make your supports good enough in like the ways I'm suggesting, go for it. Both are correct.
Think you can get away?
This game is, at the end of its day, a single-player game. So whatever you actually want to do is totally fine. If you want to play DPS Barbara, go for it. Nobody can stop you from making DPS Barbara.
No escape.
If you want to make full crit Kokomi, I don't know how you're gonna do it, but go for it.
Hold the line. Now you shall perish.
What you do, whatever you gotta do. Okay. care of these guys. This is already approaching the last one, I think. Again, basically the point of my showing you that is, let's say I didn't have the resources that I have to give characters the weapons that I feel is more appropriate to them. What if this messenger was just the best weapon that I had? I want to show you that you're still going to be capable of doing considerable amounts of damage, even though you're only using a messenger, and not to feel too bad about it. Because, in my opinion, at the end of the day, it's better for you to have most of your characters with at least a decent build than to have one or two characters with the perfect build. Of course, this is my own personal preference and my own personal approach to the game, because I can already 36 star the Spiral Abyss. It's not really that big of an issue to me anymore. In your particular cases, if you are a newer player perhaps, or somebody who just, I don't know, maybe you're a Klee diehard, and so you've only been maximizing your Klee's substats for the last 6 months, which is, yet again, I'll reiterate, a totally fine way to play and approach the game. But if that's all you've been doing, you probably are going to want to invest at least minimally into a bunch of characters. You do not need to spend for 5-star weapons. You do not need to buy the battle pass to buy decent weapons. You do not even need to buy these Blackcliff weapons. All of these things, I've proved to you that there's merit in getting them. You will get DPS increases overall by using those instead of the 3-star weapons. But in a lot of characters' cases, the 3-star weapons are actually turning out to be kind of okay. Obviously, like, Ito's is a little bit of a rough case because Claymore users don't have great options. That's just an unfortunate reality of Arataki Ito. Let's hit him with one of these. Oh yeah. Look at the damage, bro. Ooh, let's beam to. Oh my god, I'm stuck in this one. Okay, I'm just gonna Kokomi ult this guy to heal my team a bit. Kokomi's not my highest damage dealer. Oh, I'm in the water. But we could defeat the island with minimal effort, as Kokomi does heal quite a bit. Heal up the Shogun. Now we move on. Yeah. I hope you guys understand what I mean, though. I have no doubt that you do. Just use the best things you got. Moral of the story. Honestly, the best things you got are probably good enough in terms of weaponry. Even in terms of certain artifact sets, like I showed you. By using Shimanawas and Gladiator, it doesn't lose that much damage from comparing it to Shimanawa and Gladiator. Or, it doesn't lose that much damage compared to Thundering and Gladiator. Now, of course. Let's change the script a bit. Let's say you really liked Fischl, and you want to max her out, and you want to invest these different resins into you doing so. Totally fine. If that's what you want to do, I respect it. Well, I'm kind of getting tied up a bit here with my throat. For some reason, I think something cut in my throat right now. Ow. Owie. That did not feel okay. I didn't like that at all. Okay. Just drink some more water real quick. Excuse me, that was really unprofessional of me. I'm sorry about that so badly. I'm so sorry. I really didn't mean for all this to happen. My throat just started cracking on me. Oops, this might kill Raiden Shogun. Oh, no, she's okay. Okay, blessed be. Okay, so yeah, that was my main point that I was saying. Obviously, this guy who's running that calculator, he kind of, I'm assuming he's busy or fell out of love with the game, so he doesn't have time to seem to update the optimizer anymore. It doesn't have certain characters in it like Yai Miko and all this and that. So, you know, it is what it is. It seems Ito's initial release was the last time he updated it, which is fine, because it still was at least relevant enough for me to show you the thing I wanted to show you. Okay, let's hit him with a couple of those. But like, yeah, the calculator was still more than capable enough to show you, at least at a base level, some of these discrepancies. Of course, Thundering Fury and Gladiator does do more damage than Gladiator and Shimenawa. But is that marginal damage difference worth enough for you to go spend a week or two farming Thundering Fury set? You see what I'm saying? At the end of the day, if your answer to that question is yes, then by all means do it. If the answer is no, then you have options placed in front of you. The point is you have options. This was the ultimate point I wanted to make. You have options. You're not limited in Genshin Impact. You have plenty of valuable options to choose from, whether it be characters, weapons, artifacts, artifact sets. There's plenty of ways to optimize your character. It also changes depending on what you want to do with those characters. Like, I'm fine with my Xiao the way he is, because look at him. For one, he's got a pretty solid crit rate ratio, with a Royal Spear, which means he can get even more crit than this. He has, in my opinion, pretty insane amount of crit stats, at least inherently. Which obviously accounts to how he gets such big crit rates and crit damage. With an insane amount of attack boost. So he has a natural 2300 attack. Which of course, as you could imagine, goes up even higher. Like, especially watch, when I switch from Kokomi to Xiao, 3,000 attack he has. That's because of Thrilling Tales and Tenacity of the Millilith. That puts him at 3,000 attack. 3,000 attack with those crit substats, it's gorgeous. Again, I don't think my Xiao's the best Xiao. Far from it. I'm sure all the best Xiaos out there are not running Royal Spear. But at the time, this was all I could really afford to get Xiao. And I've been using him for the better half of a year, I think. When did Xiao first come out? I know it was around when Hu Tao came out, I think, but I don't remember when that was. Whenever Xiao initially released, some year or two ago now, this Royal Spear was the best that I had for him. And I've been using it ever since. And not only have I been using it ever since, it works fine. It does such an amazing job for what I want out of Xiao that I'm not even worried about anything else. Okay, let's do a high plunge. Defeated. On to the next one, which luckily is only right here. I think this one's the fire one. It still feels something's off with my throat. Whatever I did to it. Maybe eating whilst trying to speak clearly is not turning out to be a great choice of decision making on my part. Starting to feel it again. I think I ultimately need to just stop speaking for a while. I think I strained my throat some 10 minutes ago. But I'm only halfway through the stream. I can't just stop. But if I feel like if I don't stop, I'm gonna create more long-term damage for my voice. And I'd prefer to not have long-term damage. I'd like to stream long-term, not be vocally handicapped from any point forward. Not that I think it's impossible to stream without a voice, but I feel like that definitely does limit your options. Definitely. Like right now, my voice is the best part about me, right? My voice is pretty good. I think I enunciate clearly. You understand everything that I'm going to say. You have no problems understanding my messages. I think overall I have a pretty decent voice. For exactly right now though, I am going to have to speak a tiny bit slower than I usually do because it seems, as I'm speaking slower now, it's releasing some of the pressure in my vocal strain, I suppose, if I had to say something. The strain that I'm feeling is lessened when I'm speaking in this kind of slower way. Speaking in this kind of slower way, though, isn't exactly my style, but right now this is the only thing I can do. Now, if you like me speaking in this slower way as well, I'm totally fine to switch to this type of speaking in general. But for now, I actually am just speaking like this because I actually hurt my throat. It's not anybody's favorite reason, but my throat hurts. And I don't want it to anymore. So I need to speak in this. I don't even know what you would call this manner of speaking, but whatever it is, this is how I have to speak for now. And it's fine. So long as I get to talk to you guys, it doesn't really bother me how I have to talk to you guys. Because communicating with you guys is my favorite part about doing this anyways. So for me personally, I don't really care how I sound like. I mean, I care to an extent. Like, do you think my mic quality is good? Do you think, am I cutting out, like, these type of things? Because those are just, like, standardizations of my... goodness. Oh. Oh, my throat. Just giving out on me again. I don't know how much longer. Might actually have to quit streaming. Not quit, of course. I don't ever want to quit, but I might not be able to stream my full length that I want to today. I will try my best to continue to be able to do so, but if my throat continues to feel like this, we might be in a bit of a bind. I might not have the freedoms in my decision making to make that decision pretty soon. If I have another fit like that, I'll definitely have to end it for today. I don't know where this throat strain came from because I was feeling totally fine up until just like the last 20 minutes or so. These last 20 minutes I really burdened myself quite a bit for no reason.
Illusion shattered. Hold the line.
Can't really explain it. Yeah, can't really explain it, but I'm feeling very bad about it. For one, it makes me feel worse as a streamer. I'm not barely trying, but I'm trying my hardest to present myself in a way that's going to be entertaining to the most amount of people. But I feel like lately life has just been throwing wrenches in my plan. Not that I have some grand scheme, I just want to play games with you guys, but I'm being denied even this. I would hate to like play without commentary. I feel like that's a lot of the fun in this, is that you and I get to have a conversation. So it's going to stay to my preference that if I'm streaming, then I'm going to be talking. Just for me and my standards. Ugh. I can still feel the immense pressure that's building up in my throat, even to mutter these words. I don't know where this stress came from. And no, it's not quite literal stress. Like, I'm the happiest I've ever been because I get to stream to you guys. I'm in the best point in my life that I think I'll ever be. I think only my success as a streamer can make my happiness any higher. And not that my success, like, monetarily, that doesn't really bother me much. So long as I can live a nice, peaceful life. Or so long as I can afford to live a nice, peaceful life, money doesn't really bother me too much more after that. I more measure my success as a streamer compared to how many people I could get to leave positive comments. Not necessarily about me per se, but more like in general. Like, you just want to share positivity. I think that's a fantastic approach and decent metric to see if I was able to craft a community that I so valiantly stand behind. Oh yeah. Okay, maybe I need to just take a minute. Just take a minute to just calm my breathing and just relax for a bit. If that's what we're gonna do, if you don't mind, I would like to just like throw on some theory crafts again. And we'll just like take a look at it and I won't really speak too much. This way I can try to save the stress in my throat. Okay, so let's say my Ayaka. So this was a process I went through. Oh jeez. This is a process I went through even with my Ayaka today. So I knew I'm definitely running them with against Hydro. And I definitely have the Cryo Infusion on. And it's Blizzard Strayer. Blizzard Strayer. At the time I already knew I wanted Blizzard Strayer. Okay, so in this particular case, I was testing out because 4-star options are more of my standard because of the age of my account. I'm capable of considering 4-star options far more than I am 3-star options. So in this particular case, I ended up deciding on the Black Sword. But check this out. So by optimizing these subsets a bit, which in fairness, this should give you a very reliable, I guess. Okay, so we're gonna assume they're frozen, first of all, because I think that's a very safe thing to assume. Plus with Shattering Ice, because Shattering Ice does give some extra crit rate. So let's start changing some of this a tiny bit, because clearly we have too much crit rate. We can afford to drop some in some areas. But in any case, this still looks fine. This is about what my DPS looks like today, which I could prove to you here. My Ayaka technically ended up with stats slightly higher than that because, of course, I got better substats at the end of the day. Though, from the looks of things, not by much. I don't have a whole lot of crit damage on these sets. But this was my burden to carry, because I did not want to farm Blizzard Strayer that much. As you can plainly see, I don't have that many Blizzard Strayer sets at all. I ended up selling most of the other ones. But so this is just to show you, like, on average. With this expected setup, you're able to see more or less what my total damage per second will end up looking like. But now let's compare this. Again, same pretenses. We're aiming for a frozen target with Shattering Ice, which means we're also running a Hydro unit. So we would change this a bit, but not by much even. Oh, I didn't even change the weapon, so I would definitely try changing it to, like, Blackcliff. Wow. Blackcliff loses a significant amount of damage. Well, I guess it's because I'm comparing normal attacks. The burst, for example, is a fair bit. No, Blackcliff's weaker even on the burst. That's crazy. Okay, but so it's weaker on my total ice damage, but not by that much. Like if you compare these two. So 1676 or 16.7, we'll say, to 16.9. So you realistically definitely could run Blackcliff if you needed to. But in this particular case, Black Sword ended up being better. And for good reason, because technically, this offers me the ability, if I was to buy 4 more of these, to raise my damage by a considerable amount even still. That goes from 10.4 to 11.6. That's a 1200 DPS upgrade. Now that does cost quite a bit of money. That costs about $40 to make $50 to make an R5 Black Sword, and several months, because obviously the battle pass does not run. You can't get them. You can only get them once per battle pass. But don't forget, when we were comparing Fischl, Skyward Harp was about an 1800 DPS upgrade as well, or was it 1600? I think it was 1600 DPS upgrade. So this type of upgrade, going from Black Sword R1 to R5, being a 1200 DPS upgrade versus R1, that's kind of like the same DPS equivalent of going from 4-star to 5-star weapon. Now, of course, let's say I was to bring us back to 1. Let's say I actually got her like the Mist Splitter, right? The Mist Splitter is supposed to be her best sword. And then optimize this. Interesting, it optimized for attack. Wow, crit rate's the worst option, huh? Interesting. Now that's interesting. That's not what I would have expected. But in any case, I don't have Mist Splitter, and I don't know how it really works. All element and receive the might of the emblem. Yeah, but how do I gain a stack? I think you gain a stack from like auto attacking, and then one from casting your burst or something like that. So I think in general we could expect to see 2 stacks. So yeah, that goes up to 12.6 compared to 10.4, which is a pretty big DPS difference, as it also affects the damage of the ults by a fair bit. Well, by a considerable amount. Holy, that's a big damage difference. Oh, and this is not even... Oh, well, I guess it was on, just not really. But you see the point that I'm trying to make? She's hitting 12.6 with the Mist Splitter, her best in slot weapon. But with the Black Sword, she's hitting 10.4. Like, yes, it's a damage discrepancy, but is the discrepancy so big where the Mist Splitter might cost you $400, where the Black Sword costs you 10? It's not a bad option. It's yet again the point I'm trying to make. Let's see if we could compare another somebody. Let's say we wanted to make the fun one. Let's say we wanted to make Kaya's ult do the most damage, right? But obviously, let's assume he's C6. Mine isn't C6, by the way, but let's just assume that we're working with theoretical maximized character here. So I would probably run him with a pyro unit so that he can reverse melt. And I think I would probably run him with crit rate, pyro damage, and ER, because I would believe I'm running him on Emblem of Celebrate. So now I can optimize these substats a bit. These EM's the highest, but let's go crit rate instead. And now let's optimize the weapon. So we don't have Summit Shaper or Freedom Swarm. This is just a lie. When this optimizer does not optimize the Royal Longsword well, because when it considers optimizing stuff, as you can see, it clearly tries to optimize it at maximum stats, which is a bit unfair to do so. So like I think it's better to think about 5 stacks. which is easier to manage, so like 8K almost with Summit Shaper. Alternatively, what if we were to use Blackcliff? Where is Blackcliff? What if we were to use Blackcliff? It goes down to 6100, which is fair, but to be expected, right? So this gives him pretty decent stats. He's going to be hitting for 61. Okay, let's assume otherwise. I'm only assuming this because of reasons. So so 3300. Let's compare what Black Sword with attack percent. What? You would have enough crit rate with Black Sword? Oh yeah, I mean I suppose. But I would give him 3500. To be honest, it's not bad. It looks like it beats crit damage, but only by a bit. But in doing this, he still gains. I know on this website it shows like the burst damage that he gains. I just don't know where. 46 cryo damage. Oh, burst damage. He would gain 51% burst damage from the Emblem of Severed Fate. That's the cost of running ER over EM. Now, let's assume that we wanted to maximize this under the pretense that he's going to be something like this. And instead we'll run Favonius Sword. So, let's change the goblet. You see, I said what Pyro, right? There's let's change the goblet. Change the flower stats, feather stats. Clock. I think for the clock we more or less want to keep it the way it is. Unless we could change it to Elemental Mastery. If we change it to Elemental Mastery and the circlet, we keep it at attack. This gives me an average DPS of about 6k. This is again assuming that it's reverse melting it, which, to be honest, this doesn't really seem that good, but I suppose Kaya, well, I actually don't know how Kaya's ult works, to be honest. I'd like to believe, does each one of the Glacial Waltz hit everything? Where's Kaya? Oh. I could only assume each one of these does damage, so it's actually more damage than the website's leading on. I think. Of course we would have to try it at some point, but maybe not particularly right now. But you see, I have a lot of fun working with theoreticals on this website. I think it's a blast. Okay, so my throat definitely still hurts. So I regret to do this, but I think it's in my best interest to just end the Genshin stream today. I would like to stall out and do like this extra content with you guys, but I all of a sudden don't feel too confident in my voice. I don't want to cause, like I said, any long-term damage to myself. I think it's in my best interest that I just end it here for today. Even now, I can feel my voice is starting to weaken again. I don't really know where this came from. I don't believe I'm sick or anything like this. I'm not tired, I'm well hydrated, I've eaten. I don't know where this vocal issue came from, but I will simply have to give it a rest for today. Terribly sorry about that. I wish that wasn't the case, but especially with Kazuha coming right up around the corner, very, 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 very soon, I want to make sure that I'm perfectly ready, healthy, voice intact, for the screaming match we're gonna have once he's actually fully live. Yeah, it's only looking to be like 4 days now. Let me see, today's the 8th. He's expected to come out on like the 9th. I mean, not the 9th, the 13th. So we can look forward to that. As of right now, I have about 220-ish wishes lined up. But like I mentioned, we're gonna hope to get lucky and see if we can't just pull a Kazuha C2 right out the gate, right? Anything's possible. That's what I've learned. But yeah, like I said, I'm so sorry about the shortened stream for today. I don't know why my throat keeps failing me. It keeps closing on me, and it's really causing me some great discomfort. Terribly sorry. I'll try to have everything situated for next stream. But in any case, I do still want to thank you for coming out and showing your support to me. It really does mean the world to me to be able to do this, to meet you guys, to make your acquaintance, make your friendships. These relationships are so very important to me, and the fact that I get to stream Genshin Impact every day is it's a luxury that I'm not willing to let go of, to be honest. But thank you so much for showing up. I'd appreciate it if you are new here, if you subscribe to the channel and like the stream. If you did like what you saw today and like to see content similar to this, go ahead and ring the notification bell to be notified anytime I go live. And then, if it pleases you, I would appreciate it if you follow me on my Twitter, linked in the description down below, so that anytime I post any updates or any whimsical thoughts, you'll be able to interact with me on a more personal level. And then, finally, I hope you guys enjoyed the stream. Again, I want to deeply apologize for its short in length, but I hope you guys will tune into my stream tomorrow as well, okay? One last sorry, and I love you guys, and I'll catch you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.